And then everything you need to know about those characters will appear and happen in a way where it doesn't mean like, oh, and then remember when the sun turned red because Lex Luthor wanted to take away Superman's powers? Like, no. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Nerd on the Podcast you didn't need, but you deserve. Where all levels of nerd are welcome from other dimensions and Earths and planets and
multiverse.
Zabadulio.
The multicast.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's what they're called, apparently. In the age of heroes and comics, finding ourselves wanting to be special can put us into places, overexerting ourselves and making us into everyday Atlases. Or, in the DC world, the Superman complex. Today, we dive into one of the newest characters of the DC universe that also has a new show on the CW with the comic book source material, Naomi Season 1, but we're going to call it Volume 1 because it is the comic book and we're not covering the show.
Yeah, exactly. And the Season 1 just started of Naomi. So,
Just to avoid confusion. Yeah,
exactly.
It's the book. With that being said, let's not get too far into it and introduce the host. My name is Tom.
I'm Corey.
And I am Josh. And this episode is brought to you in part by the members of the Nerd On Nation that is powered by Patreon. As a member of the Nerd On Nation, you do get fun perks.
Like what?
Like you get boner episodes that nobody else hears.
You did it.
You get early access to these episodes. You get early access on merch, discounts on merch. You get access to channels on our Discord server that only are accessible by members of the Nerd On Nation. So it's a fun, family to be a part of. I call it that because everybody's so supportive. The Nerd On Nation Discord is people tell personal stories, and when we tell personal stories, they're so supportive.
They listen. They show gardening.
They validate our emotions.
And they show like their animals and also food that they've eaten that makes me angry because I'm not eating it.
Scores from video games.
Yeah,
exactly. So at the same time, there's that community, but there is also supporting us in what we do. You get to help us be better and make better content and be better us.
Make us supermen.
Yeah, we've got a super cast.
Ubermensch.
Yeah, so check it out. nerdon.tv/Patreon for as little as $4 a month.
4 quarters, baby.
Yeah.
That's way less than a cup of coffee nowadays.
Way less.
It's just 4 quarters.
We used to just be like, yeah, it's like a cup of coffee. You know, when I was in high school,
even like black
we used
coffee.
to do fundraisers in high school, and this was like 2007, and we would make the joke even then. That was like, yeah, like almost the price of a cup of coffee, 4 quarters. But now I'm like, that's like.
Where?
That's like a fifth of a coffee.
Yeah.
You want to look at our coffee? 4 quarters.
Toss a coin to your nerd.
Less than looking at coffee. You can support us.
I think we should use that on graphics and marketing.
Yeah.
So check it out, nerdon.tv/Patreon, and check out that Discord. That is an ever-growing community. Every week there seems to be new members. So check it out, nerdon.tv/Discord. And a huge shout out to Apogee, Odyssey, and
Embody Audio. Embody Audio.
We it's looking like we're gonna have some fun stuff happening with Embody Audio.
They're very cool.
They're very cool.
They're very cool.
By there we mean Jaren, because it's a pretty small company, and that's why.
Yeah, well, shout out specifically to Jaren, but what they're doing at that company is also very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation recently with Jaren, and he found it hard because there's a lot of what they call HRTFs, which is basically the technology is spatial sound that in relation to your head. And theirs is very specific and interesting because when you're setting it up, you have to take a picture of your ear and load it into the program, and then it analyzes specific to you.
The structure and how
the structure and
audio is going to bounce off your curves.
Because we all have ears, but all of our ears are just a little bit different.
Yeah, like a fingerprint.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. And it works with AirPods.
Yeah, it works with any
Apple
kind.
in-ears, which I never thought. In fact, we thought at first, we're like, yeah, it probably doesn't work with that. And then they came on our stream, they're like, oh no, it does. And we're like, oh shit.
Yeah,
it totally does.
Incredible company. And they're just, they have partnerships with Logitech and Beyerdynamic and have some really exciting ones coming out. They were just a part of Final Fantasy XIV, the big new update, Endwalker. There was some intertwining that you could install a specific thing with Immerse, their program. It's just really cool. I love Jaren so much. They're
Shout out again to Jaren.
Yeah, they're a great company, and I all support to them. They're just amazing. So that's the housekeeping. Let us get on to this super episode, this super powered, out of this world episode.
There it is. That's the one. Let's get on to this out of this world episode. Before we get into all of that, we have at the end of the show, we do this thing where we rate something out of 5 stars. Did you know this?
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. We'll each take time to tell you what we thought. And at the end of the show, we'll rate it. So that brings us into our very first segment, which is...
Guess that grump.
She's a superhero, and she doesn't know, but she loves a Superman, but she doesn't know that she really wants to be. Not from here, this earth, but a different one. So we do that every single time. That's the song. Finally, it worked out.
Yeah,
because we've been singing that song for 4 years, and it finally matched up with the content that we're doing. Which is pretty impressive.
Because we're seeing very far ahead in the future.
Yeah,
we have a thing called foresight.
It's more like improvised jazz.
Yeah. But in this segment, we're all going to go around the table. Rated out of 5 stars, no matter who's the lowest, even if it's 4.9, it could be anywhere. Even if it's a 4.9, they're the grump for the episode.
I mean, we're going to guess who's going to have the lowest score.
Yeah,
we're not going to rate it right now.
No, at the end of the show. So with that, since I never do this, I'll go first.
Ah,
well done.
I literally never do this.
Ever.
But I'll say Tom.
Okay. All right.
So begrudgingly.
Okay.
It's hard because he's the DC boy.
I am.
But also that could be a detriment.
Yeah.
So Popcorn Tom.
I'll go next, and I'm going to guess Corey.
Okay.
Fuck. Well, you wanted me to guess you?
No, I'm the tiebreaker.
I want to guess you, so it's just
no matter what.
You want to guess the guy in the Superman shirt?
No.
Yeah, no.
Well, if we were doing volume 2, then it'd be a different thing.
Yeah, you never know.
There's a lot of Batman and Superman in there.
I'm gonna say. Shoot, such a crapshoot. I'm gonna say
Coriam. That's
vote for both of you, Corey.
Yeah,
that's a new DC character.
Just say it.
There are some aspects.
I already
of
wrote
this.
you in.
Yeah.
There.
There are some aspects that I think that either of you will really like.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see.
So that's that. But there's one more element to this. Are you sitting at home going, Josh wore that shirt as a deterrent, you fools? You fell for it. You idiots. Tom and Corey are idiots. They're idiots.
If you're watching this.
Are you guys idiots?
Yeah, I don't know. We have a really aggressive Nerd on Nation, apparently.
Wow.
Because if you're sitting there and you want to speak with your vote, less than looking at a cup of coffee, you can. You can take part in our Guess That Grump polls, in which you guess who the Grump of the Week is going to be. And if you get it right, you get a shout out on the show. And you're that Guess That Grumper, Gatorade, grass-fed,
Green Lantern.
Green Lantern. What's the evil guy's name?
His name is Zabado.
Zabado.
Zambado,
Guesser Grumper TM. And you'll get a shout on the show. And guess what? We're keeping track this year. So whoever gets it right the most will get crowned. What we came up with a name, I think.
I called it the God Emperor Guesser.
The God Emperor Grand Arbiter
Poobah
Guesser. Yeah. At the end of the year. So the Nerd on Nation has spoken, and it was close, y'all. It was very close, but it's
you. Oh, it's me.
Me. It's me.
I was like, it's you.
I mean, you got it right. So that gives me 3.
Wow.
So the way this is going to go is Josh, you will give your rating first, then Tom, and then me at the end with that Nerd on Nation vote. So there we have it. Now we're going to get into the complete spoilers of that section, and with our first reactions, initial reactions, and first impressions over the pond.
And initial impressions. First reactions and initial impressions.
Wow.
Episode
240.
FRII, baby.
We're professionals at this.
I'm just bringing the thunder today.
Who's going first?
I'll go last since I got all the votes in the Nerd on Nation. So, Josh, why don't you give us your first impression,
You got a
initial
Superman
reaction?
shirt on.
My first impression, I mean, when you mentioned this, I had no idea. Tom, this was your idea.
I've had a lot of ideas this month.
Actually, I think I Googled it.
Well, we had
And
TBA.
Tom went, that's good.
That's good. Okay, well, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I did it. Bitch, we watched it together.
He wants some validation.
I had
You did
never.
good.
I knowingly knew about it, but didn't actually know about it because I I mean, I've said this on the show. I work at the CW network.
Shout out.
I promote some of the shows, and we've seen Naomi on the schedule, and I just, when you work at a company, you probably know this, it's kind of easy to just kind of disconnect yourself from what other departments are doing or whatever. And if it's not your thing that you're working on, you just kind of like, not block it out, but you're working on your stuff. And I had no idea what Naomi was about, what it was. And then I started looking this up and reading it, and I really enjoyed it. I think that there's a lot to be said about a comic that or a volume that when you finish it, you're automatically searching for the next thing, the season.
Yeah.
Which that was hard to find.
It was.
Especially now,
now
because
that
the show just came out.
Well, I mean, the worst thing for me is into that just small tangent. Have you ever tried looking up a word that you're like, what does that mean? And then you end up finding the movie, and I'm like,
yes,
fuck this movie. Like, I just want to know the definition of this word, you bastards. But Google fucking sucks.
Candyman.
Candyman 2021.
Evil dies tonight.
So yeah, I mean, I walked away from this, and obviously we'll go into details later and spoilers. But right now I'll leave it as, I finished, and I pretty much got onto Comixology and look for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very glad you finished. You said it. You said it.
So Tom,
Josh, you done? Just want to make sure.
I feel like don't say anymore after that.
Nope.
Okay,
It's all ammo.
So for me, I had known about this comic book, and I think I for sure bought issue 1 because I'm a big fan of collecting comic books. And I collect the singles, and I just board them and I board them and bag them immediately. I never open them.
Like out of the shop.
Yeah, I'm just like,
I'm the
nope,
same.
I don't touch it. It's there for collector piece, and I can admire the cover art, and that's it. And then I would never even want to sell these comic books. That's how, like, I'm just weird that way. And so I knew that this comic book was coming out. Brian Michael Bendis, creator of the Ultimate Universe for Marvel, very prolific in that way. He's been doing some DC Superman stuff, and DC kind of just like opened the doors for him and was just like, you can take everything you want. And knowing that this came out of in I think 2019 at first, just Naomi issue 1. I was like, okay, a new character coming in, that's pretty cool. And it just kind of felt like, at that point with Fandom and Milestone Comic Books coming back in, it was like this revival of new characters, and also creating new characters for like other smaller shops within DC. And I was very interested into it. So when I read the book, read the volume, read the season 1, whatever you want to call it, it was enjoyable. I was reading it, and again, you kind of don't know what's going to happen, what they're going to include. And now that I've read it, I'm like, oh, I get it. Very much like Jonathan Hickman in that way, where it's like, I'm reading an X-Men thing. You don't think we're going to touch Fantastic Four? I wrote that shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think we're going to talk the Avengers? I wrote that shit. Like, oh, okay. So Brian Michael was like, oh, I wrote Young Justice and Superman. So I'm like, oh, okay. So this character fits into both worlds.
Yeah.
The one thing, this is not a spoiler, one thing I really did kind of like was this idea, because there are new characters coming around to the DC fold, and a lot of them go into like Batman's world and stuff like that. But the thing I liked about Naomi in particular was that the writers wanted to create a character that felt like Thor when Thor walks into a room. Like, okay, here's a big powerhouse character that just walked in. And I think that's kind of cool, just to add a new character that kind of offsets a little bit of the balance of terms of like, oh, the strong characters in the DC universe. That being said, I thought it was enjoyable. I think you read it and you're like, yeah, this feels like a season 1 of a TV show. If anything, it kind of feels like a really long pilot.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
like
this is a pilot.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's part of me that's like, if you did this as a mini series on like HBO Max, then you can stretch out this whole run as like a maxi series or whatever, and it would be cool. And it'd be like, oh, it has like a slow build. We're kind of learning more about it. Every time like each issue ends, you're like, well, now I gotta get to the next part. Well, now I gotta get to the next part, which is, very in tune to like TV writing. But no, I thought it was enjoyable. I thought the artwork is the like most standout piece
The artwork's great.
of the book, and I'm interested to see where else Naomi's going to fit in the DC universe. But I thought it was just a fun way to kind of get introduced to a character that lives within the DC universe, and it well establishes like, yeah, this is during where everyone's around. It's not like in a vacuum in itself, which is fun, and it's an enjoyable read for anybody.
I know that since this series, she's appeared in like Justice League Teens or something. I don't know the actual name.
Young
of it,
Justice.
but Young Justice. So I mean, because they go to this town. I guess
Mhm.
I just was looking up because I was trying to find more information about her, and she's. I mean, this is it, man.
No,
this is the beginning.
Yeah, there's no backstory. This is the introduction of this character for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So,
For me, I've read a lot of intros to new characters over my time reading comic books, and there are few that stand out to me as exceptional or gripping. One of them is the Kyle Rayner Green Lantern, and this. I loved how established this felt. It didn't feel. I mean, we got an established writer writing it, so that helps a lot. But it felt very not forced is a terrible way to explain it, but it fit in the world really well, and it felt like she had existed in the DC universe before this as a person, and they did a really great job of building that world. I am hooked. I really enjoyed my time reading this. Like you said, it feels like a pilot, which for a character introduction, I'm cool with. So did the Kyle Rayner's Green Lantern. Obviously, you have to establish who this person is and who they are before they become who they are destined to be. There were a few surprises in there that I really dug, where I was like, oh, that's cool. I really haven't seen that aspect before. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed my time reading this, and much to Josh's point, I ended up staying on Comixology Unlimited, starting an account to read this, and I'm staying to continue to read the rest. So I'm sold on this character, Naomi. I also just, like you said, the art was really gorgeous, and the design of her suit is phenomenal.
shoulder pads.
So yeah, that's what I'll say without any spoilers.
Before we go too far into this, because we are going to start getting into spoiler zone soon, if you want to pause now and go read it, if you go to nerdon.tv/Naomi Comixology, it'll lead you straight to what we read today, which is the season 1. So,
It's Carlin.
there's a Carlin.
It is I would say, a quick and easy read.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I there's a lot of times I say this, and I feel like I say this a lot on the show. If you're getting into comic books and you're brand new and you don't know where to start, this is one of those wonderful things of, like, Superman, and then this has that in there, and then it's a new character who lives in a world where Superman exists, and this is a good way to kind of feel like, oh, okay, cool. And then season 2, volume 2, whatever you want to call it, does very much into, like, right into the Trinity.
Yeah.
So
Cool. So with that brings us on to our next 2 segments. Excuse me, I just burped in the middle of me pitching our show.
Wow.
Our next 2 segments, which is our, which one do we do first? Brief synopsis and then production.
correct.
And your
Yeah.
brief synopsis will be brought to you
part
by
by-
no other than yours truly. When a fight between Superman and Mongol crashes into a small northwestern town, Naomi begins the quest to uncover the last time a superpowered person visited her home, and how that might tie into her own origins and adoptions.
Ta-da!
It's Tuesday.
Dum dum.
It's Thursday. There we have it. There's
and,
your brief. That is brief as hell.
That's super
And
brief.
what's even more brief is the production.
Yeah.
I've got your brief production. The publication is brought to you by DC Comics, also known for Deceased, Justice League, Green Lantern. Let's just say you know them.
I hope they catch a break one of these days.
Yeah. Writers, David F. Walker, known for Cyborg, Young Justice, DC's very merry multiverse. Brian Michael Bendis, known for such things as Ultimate Spider-Man, Secret Invasion, and created Miles Morales. Artist, Jamal Campbell, known for Far Sector, Injustice 2, Volume 3, and Green Error. Not Arrow. It was an error.
That's a new character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Green Error.
Yeah,
Green
it
Arrow.
affects all your electronic devices.
Green Arrow.
He goes through it and spell corrects all of your paperwork, but instead of using red pen,
He
uses
does green, so you
I was-
think you did a good job.
I was
Green
gonna say
Arrow.
he's the error for the viruses. He kills.
Oh,
he
wow.
kills all your pop-ups.
Wow. The publication date started October 23rd, 2019, and the series order,
It's under Naomi 2019. That's
Naomi
all it is.
2019.
It's
And,
so new.
Yeah, Volume 2 or Season 2 starts really soon, actually. We accidentally planned this episode perfectly.
Yeah, and we normally mention how many copies were sold. There's no real data around it right now, but they like Diamond Comics was saying like issue 4 like sold out, and people were selling it on eBay for $20 a pop. And normally these comic books, if you're buying singles, are $3.99.
Well, I mean, I think, just to speak on it a little bit, I mean, There's a possibility. Who knows? I mean, Ava DuVernay is connected to the show, which, I mean, she's a powerhouse.
I think she's the showrunner.
Yeah, but I mean, her name connected to anything really is gold, I think. I mean, she's incredible. And so I can imagine the
One
comic.
step closer to directing X-Men.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like DC's got her, or Warner Brothers got her to like, you stay with us now.
I mean, all power to him, but I mean, I love what she does. And so there's a part of me that thinks that this is going to make the comic get a little bit more light on it.
Oh, yeah.
And
100%.
Well, I mean, the fact that, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. I couldn't find the Volume 1 physical copy. I read it on digital too, and I was just like, oh my God. And I was like, I just wanted to go to one store to physically have it. So normally on our table, we would have the comic book on a table. And I couldn't find it. So I guess we can go into full spoilers now.
Yeah, full spoilers.
Favorite parts,
favorite characters,
and then
qualms, and then
ratings.
rating.
Yeah, so it's 6 issues.
129 pages.
109. Such a quick read.
Very quick.
I read it at least twice over the past couple of days. Again, like I was just like.
I know we're a little bit into the year, starting of the year. I know a lot of people have some goals to read more books. Comic books is a good way. Books are books, baby. So read some comic books, read some trades, read some, volumes. You'll get a lot of books read, I promise. So favorite parts. I want to go first.
Okay.
I didn't get a chance. I'll go first. So what I'm going to do, favorite part. Honestly, I love the reveal of who Dee and Greg. Is it Greg, the dad?
Yeah.
I love that reveal because I am the DC boy, and I do know some things of the universe, right? The Green Lantern Corps, Thanagarians, all that stuff. The Manhunters, all that stuff.
For those of you who might not know what Thanagarians are,
they're the Hawk people.
Yeah,
they're the Hawk people. And Green Lanterns, Green Lantern Corps, Manhunters were the first.
I did not know that.
First
there
Lantern.
You go.
Yeah. So that's the cool thing. Like
Hawkman.
Honestly, for a lot of people who also may not know a lot about the DC universe, watch the cartoons. They're a very wonderful way to get introduced to everything, especially the Just League cartoon by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. All of them good people.
Mid to late 90s.
And Dwayne McDuffie, which we'll talk about that later. They introduced Hawkgirl, and she's like, I'm a Thanagarian warrior. I'm like one of the main.
I thought you
guards.
just said Hot Girl, and I was like,
Hawk.
I didn't know that character either.
Not totally incorrect.
No. And it's cool just because Thanagarians are just like the Spartans of space, and that's like the really cool way to go about where they're just this war based planet and all that stuff. And they always kind of like when they come in, you're like, the fuzz is here. You're like, because they also have nth metal, which is these weapons that literally have like magic imbued in them, and then like. If you're a magic user, your magic
powerhouses.
is amplified.
Yeah, it's you always see it with the Morning Star that they have.
Yeah.
And so Superman doesn't have a weakness towards magic. A lot of people say that because The Rock is misinformed. He has the same amount of weakness as anyone else about magic. So he's just a normal person. Doesn't mean he's weak to it. So if he got smacked by an nth metal mace, it would hurt him just as much as it hurt anyone else.
Yeah.
So that's the like cool shit.
He has
about
a weakness to
Thanagarian.
kryptonite.
Yes,
but he is not immune to magic as he is to bullets and stuff like that.
Correct. Seeing Dee and realizing that he was this Thanagarian like war escapee assassin guy, and then like his whole backstory of like his lover and all that, he was his like squad leader, and then like as they're escaping, she dies, and I was like, oh, and then like he comes to Earth and he's just like. But now he has like I have social anxieties, and he's like I'm scared to like build relationships.
I've got a lot to unpack.
And then
I have
like
some intimacy issues.
But
to
then
unpack.
and the dad who came in, he was just like I was here to kill him, and I realized he had found another life, and so I decided to have another life too. And there's always this like,
and the two of them both were like, no one's called yet.
Yeah, but like
maybe they forgot about it. Maybe the war went south.
And then like when Naomi finally comes through, and they're like they both show up, and they both it's like.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts when they meet at the football field and they're ready to like fight. They're like, "Oh, this was you? Oh, it's about to go down." They're like, "No, this hasn't rang in years. Like I don't know what's happening right now."
Oh yeah, because the dad has the gun and he's like, "What the hell?" And it's
like,
oh damn.
For me, like just to kind of get this out of the way, reading through
get it out of the way.
Just whatever. It's just a throw out. Because it's it's about the book as a whole, how it's formatted. When you're reading through Comixology, what I like, this isn't an ad for Comixology. This is just the way that I read comics.
But the panels and way it moves.
No, I go panel by panel.
Yeah.
But what I noticed about this is when you go panel by panel, you can see edges and you can kind of see because they're focusing on the dialogue that's important, and then sometimes they'll zoom out if it's like a full page spread so you can see it. But they didn't do it as much on this, except for there was a couple of really cool splashes of Superman fighting and stuff like that.
The Thanagarians.
Yeah. But on this, on my second and third time around, I read it full page. The formatting and window configuration is so dope. There are a few sections that I'm like, nice. That was creative. It was just like the way that they would put windows within windows, and then there was there was a background and a foreground. There was depth, and I really enjoy it. Of course, I'm reading it digitally, so I don't know what the physical. I think that what Comixology does is like the 2 pages are a spread, and they will load the image as a 2-page spread. It's like a full screen. But if it's 1 page, it'll just be like what you see. It's a page. So I don't know what the actual experience of reading it physically is. Like there are some windows that I was like, man, would that be in the middle of the spine? Like what how would they spread that?
I know this isn't a Comixology ad, but this also will not be a Kindle shade. If you want to, check that out because all they give you is just the 2 pages and you're like, what the fuck is that? And you have to like zoom in.
Here's the thing. Comixology is an Amazon company.
Yeah,
so I mean, hey.
Yeah, no, it's all the same thing, but I was just like...
Yeah, so I really, just the experience of reading it just from a visual standpoint is just like, it's really cool. That's the thing about comics that I love is that you can be creative in that. Like we talk about film, like you have this frame and you can do anything you want in that frame. And
that's your frame.
Yeah, it's with comics, it's kind of the same thing where it's just like, have fun with it. I mean, make it understandable. So, I mean, there's a certain way to read comics. There's a path that you follow the dialogue, and some mess with that. But
like, so like this was one for me that stood out. I want to show.
There's a panel that he's gonna try to show.
Show to the camera there.
Yeah,
like this kind of stuff.
It's a full page spread, but it's also got separation.
Yes, and certain things are still consistent over the other ones. Like showing you where they're getting thrown to, where they're jumping to, or like his red streak of him flying away. So it tells you where your eyes to go, but it's broken up into 3 panels or 4 panels or whatever it might be.
Jamal Campbell is amazing.
Yeah, and some of the panels are almost a part of the scene, which is really cool. And just like
there's one in particular where we first meet Naomi's parents.
Yeah,
and then they're having this conversation, and there are these black bars.
She's in the middle,
and she's getting more and more claustrophobic, and she like slightly starts saying like, "I talked to the mechanic today." Yeah, and they're like, "What?" And it's like that feeling of like, pressure building upon you, which I want to also bring into another favorite part. I like the therapy session because I really like that and that's the thing where it feels like they're living and expanding in the world of DC of like, oh, you have a Superman complex, much like we said in the opening of the show. Like Naomi finds herself an orphan child who is adopted and wants to hopefully find out someday, like Superman, that she's special because he's also not the fact that he's a hero and that he helps people, but that he's adopted and that he came to this earth and then he found acceptance. And I thought that was a really cool thing of like showing like one, it's kind of truly talking about like what Superman is really kind of supposed to be, not like, and this is a big Marvel DC internet bullshit argument. Superman is not Captain America. He will never be Captain America. And they shouldn't be like each other. But the thing is like, he's an orphan person who becomes accepted.
You mean in relation to what people say his theme?
Yeah, everyone's like, he's supposed to be Mr. America and supposed to be all patriotism. And that's why he says they changed Superman's truth, justice, and the American way. It's now truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. Like that's his phrase now because they're like, no, he's a global hero.
Yeah.
And he's from another planet. Captain America literally is Captain America. He's not Captain World.
Yeah.
So it's like, it makes sense for Captain America.
There's already a Captain Planet. God.
Yeah. And so it's like, that
he's our hero.
That being said, no, I just like that. And then, they're talking about like, she's been going to therapy for quite some time now and she's just wanting to figure out where she's from, who she is. And, that there has to be something more to this like small sleepy town and all that stuff. And and you find out later on it kind of impacts like her entire journey of like, if Superman came here once and this isn't the like last time, I don't know who I am and where I come from. And this is the big thing that I kind of really liked. If you read at the end of the volume 1, the season 1, Brian Michael Bendis talks about how he and David Walker developed the character, and how Brian Michael Bendis like got to DC, and then he got a really good deal, and then he got really sick, and he went to the hospital, and then David Walker would like be there and visit him every day at the hospital. And the doctor said he didn't have that much long to live.
Oh, shit.
And it was really kind of like stressful for him. And Brian Michael Bendis has 2 children who are one is for sure black, and the other one I think is like from Africa. And so writing this story, he wanted to kind of have this story of like, you know, this black woman or young woman, try to figure out where she comes from story. And, you know, it's very much inspired from his daughters. And so,
like, not just origin as a character, but origin as a person.
Yeah.
And
it's very much warranted of, you know, knowing you're adopted, of wondering where you come from, who's your parents, and what does that mean. And so he places that into the DC universe of like, what if someone, which I really loved that, like every single time, like, oh, we're going to find out her origins. Like her dad is a this, her dad is like, nope, her dad is truly adopted. Nope. Her mom is truly like,
nope, the mechanic is just a warrior.
Yeah, he's like, he's not your dad. He's like, is that my mom? Why did you do that? And then
not your mom.
And there's like, no way you could just be normal.
Yeah, and it's like you're from another Earth, and it's like that's pretty cool. And her story is
Ran is a different Earth. Like this
Ran's another planet.
Okay.
So Ran and Thanagar are from different planet. Are in one universe, but then another universe is where she's from.
Yeah.
So that even then, like, even though her family is apparently not from this Earth, and they're so different, and she's adopted, so it's like there's further connection.
There's a triangle. There's like her mom is from this Earth.
Yeah.
Her dad and the mechanic are from another dimension.
No, from
another planet, and then she's from another dimension. Or multiverse. She's from a multiverse.
It's another version of Earth.
So there's like 3 different connections.
In her version of Earth, like Earth, the ozone layer fell and radiation got to all of them.
That's how people got their powers.
And then there was only a few of them. And much like Superman, she was the firstborn out of these people with powers. And so, like, she couldn't be further away from her true origin of, like, even my 2 parents aren't even from this planet.
I mean, for me, like, reading this is, I know that I've said on this show a few times, is that I don't necessarily enjoy reading like the major DC superheroes, and so it was interesting to read this because it's more so like major adjacent, where it's like Superman's there and like all these different things, and because there's a lot to know. I think it's more so comes from I've read some Superman storylines and some Batman obviously for this show and different stuff, but there's a lot there. There's a lot to go into, and it can be overwhelming. So getting something like this, where it's like you don't really need to know the entire lore of
Superman showed up.
Yeah, done. Superman showed up,
Yeah.
and that's it. That's all you need to know about Superman. Boom, and people love him.
Yeah,
and boom.
And
now read our story.
And then everything you need to know about those characters will appear and happen in a way where it doesn't mean like, oh, and then remember when the sun turned red because Lex Luthor wanted to take away Superman's powers? Like, no. But like that being said, I did remember seeing like a DC like sneak peek of Naomi. It was pretty cool because you did see like she was running outside. I think she had her skateboard, and then like right above her head, just a red zoom flew around. So when opening and reading this first panel of like all those kids telling about like the event of what happened with Superman, I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, like how they're adapting it into the live action. But Corey, any more favorite parts?
I haven't done any favorite parts.
Yeah. We've totally taken over the conversation.
Remember when Corey was a host?
I remember when I was a host. I mean, the switch from her like almost being defeated that everyone around her is special and she's not, like holding her dad's helmet and she's like touching the
it
ship.
Wasn't my ship.
Yeah. But then the change to finding that, you know, that piece of metal underneath the dashboard that came with her and just getting every single bit of information that she needs.
But who did she get it from?
A voice from her mom.
Which is pretty sweet.
Which is very the foil of Superman
Jor-El.
getting it from his dad. So she wasn't far off feeling this way for a reason. And then getting the whole backstory on the 29 people who at least came forward with the powers, and finding out about this big bad and him fucking showing up and her willingness to just be like, all right, I'm going through. And I was sitting there reading it and be like, that's him. That's got to be him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then when he finally says it, and you
I'm
see that,
a friend of your parents.
yeah, and you're like, oh, maybe she got lied to. Maybe she got it backwards.
Yeah, because in comics, you never know.
No, you never know. Or maybe there was some part of the story that, over her life she hadn't heard yet, that maybe they didn't die and they've actually been working together. And then he says the name and she's like, okay, motherfucker. And then she just goes for it. And she smacks the shit out of him. That whole little, probably 10 pages was some of my favorite of this.
Well, you got to see the other Earth too. It's all pink and
the
blue
colors.
and purple.
And his
That's
design,
on my list, so just-
I'm looking at it right now. His design is very cool.
Yeah.
And very scary. I mean, it's like you can't see his
got,
face, but you see these
tentacles.
two white eyes.
It's very Vilgax if you know Ben 10.
So it's his design is very, very cool.
And then when she literally punches him out of this world, I was like,
yeah. Well, and it's cool that you said kind of like Thor, because I was getting some Odin
She got photon powers.
Norse vibes from him.
So apparently David Walker was a little skeptical of what to make her powers when they were writing it. They were like, and so apparently Brian Michael Bendis was like, just write, this is the story. And then David Walker was like, but what are her powers? The audience are expecting her to become a Green Lantern. And they were like, and Brian was like, no. Like, she's going to be a different character. Do what the audience doesn't know what they want. And then so it created photon powers and created this new ability where her armor's in her skin. And then so when she's empowered, it comes out. But also
this, I liked this motion of her.
There is a thing though with her eyes that her eyes actually look like the White Lantern symbol. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty interesting. I was like, that looks like the White Lantern. But I don't know. I don't know if there's anything more to it. But no,
the little crescent moon with the lights.
With the lights, doesn't look like the triangle white.
It
white
does a little bit, yeah.
But that being said, I mentioned Vilgax, which is and the reason why I bring this up, that's a Ben 10 show, and Dwayne McDuffie helped write that show, and Dwayne McDuffie helped also write some episodes of Batman Beyond, Justice League Unlimited. He was a prolific writer for DC. He was known as a genius. We had Stan Berkowitz on our show. Mm-hmm. They worked together.
Yeah.
He'd be the guy that everyone's like, okay, cool. It takes you 5 days to write a script, and he's like, I'll do it in one. And he was that kind of guy.
Gotcha.
And he was just, there's documentaries about him on YouTube that you can find about DC and Dwayne McDuffie. And Naomi's last name is McDuffie.
It is.
And it's in memorial of him. And I thought that was a really, really wonderful little nod to him, because to me, I felt that there has been an absence of him since he fatally passed away, and it was I was like, why did everything change? What's happened to the animation? What's with the story? I was like, oh, Dwayne McDuffie's gone.
Yeah.
No.
I would also say the use of color. I love the gold light that her power has, but against on her Earth, all the dark greens and purples, and even the villain is these highlights of white with a lot of shadow. So the contrast used there, I just think, is really beautiful. I'm looking at the frame here where she punches him back into another dimension, and the use of the purples and the gold there is just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I know we keep talking about it.
The way that they use light.
Tongues? Are those tongues?
Those look like tentacles.
Those look
like tentacles.
tonguicles.
Tonguicles.
My tongue is blast.
I love when the mom goes postal on D. When she walks in on. I mean, she just she's like
That's
this
bold, man.
I mean, when you see D, you're like, damn.
He's a big ass
that boy is
D-yam.
thick. He is thick, and when you're watching, when you're reading earlier scenes
if
with
Hulk
mom,
was on Sons of Anarchy.
yeah. When you're reading earlier scenes with mom, she's kind of unsuspecting, she's mom. She's mom. And then later on, she's got a baseball bat, and
that
she
already
is
has
livid.
a dent in it, by the way.
Yeah, she is livid. Somebody has learned to channel their anger.
And then also it's really great to see, because Pops Greg does a little backstory too, and you find out that mother, was just some Earthling, and she had sold her first painting, but was totally
she had
cool.
bright green hair,
and then blue hair, and then white hair at one point.
Yeah,
and then now here she is, full suburbia, but also I know the weird in the world, and I'm going to do everything I can to protect my daughter.
Yeah,
And
I love when she's saying later, like it's a wonderful kind of chain of events when she's like, she's not ready for this, she's not ready for this, and then like the last page when she's like, show us what you got, kind of thing. Like it's giving me chills right now because I love that. I love that aspect because I've been thinking about it myself of just like you know when you live small, your circumstances kind of make you think that you're only capable of so much. And then, but you know that you have something. You can do something big. Yeah. And then you kind of realize you don't have limitations. You're like, you could do anything. Give the world what you got. Like, let's do it.
I also love the mom going like, you know, all these years I never even asked to sit in this.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Is that weird?
Yeah.
You're telling me this as I'm finding out I'm from a different planet?
What's weird?
Yeah, what's weird?
I liked a lot of the dialogue stuff like that too, where like it didn't feel like a complete like joke per line or joke per page kind of thing. It felt like pretty like we're gonna tell this story and we're not gonna take it too seriously.
Real people.
Yeah, well, like her friend, which I don't know if they're just friends. We'll find out. But like they're just really close, and then she's explaining it to her, and she's just like, "You're taking this very well." I was like, "I stopped breathing 15 minutes ago." Yeah, and like that kind of stuff.
The dad when he's like, Dad, I watched that scary movie with you. And he was like, yeah, I changed your diapers, raised you all these years just to kill you in a cave.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Use your head.
I did like the dad a lot too. And like finding out that he was like from Rand and he was like some assassin, I was like, that's badass.
Yeah. And then the football field, you know, when they get Naomi for the first time, like there's the portal opening up and then both just being like, did we just defend people from another universe? Well, did we scare them off? Yeah. But I mean, he goes, "Did we defend this Earth from people? Like, did we scare them?" He's like, "I think we did."
I did love Dee's like axe that he busted out. Like I was like, "Oh,
I love him with a beard." I was so sad when he didn't have a beard. I was like, "Bruh, that beard." But it's probably the most. Like you see him and you're like, oh, that's like that guy.
He's from Rock of Ages. He says, we agreed it looked like those guys were trying to kill that baby and we chased them off. That's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah.
Just them getting along in this field, knowing both of their histories is kind of cool.
I think that's one of the most charming things from these characters is that like instead of redoing a Superman origin story with the new character, you just do like, well, now we can take these DC characters or DC things and then bring them to like, oh, these two people are from war-torn planets and they live in this small little Oregon town and like there's this like hey like we both can wipe out everyone here if we wanted to.
Mine just
but like we're just gonna be cool.
Yeah.
I think that's really fun. I think that's very like, you know, cool like teen to adult like storytelling of like in this sleepy town there are things that protect it and you just don't know why, and then you have this history behind them.
Yeah.
I think we can go on for favorite parts. Let's do favorite characters.
How many?
Yeah.
Let's do.
And is Naomi one of them?
Let's do two, and Naomi is not one of them. Okay. That makes it easier, right? So that's technically three. Naomi's one of them, and then two.
Okay, I'm glad I prepped for that.
Naomi because like
it's the book.
Yeah.
How do you not like Naomi the best out of all of these?
I'll go first.
I gotta find one more for myself.
Okay, so go ahead, Josh.
I'm glad I prepped for this. D. I dig D. I mean, there's a spread of him riding his motorcycle and he's suited up. Like I'm just like,
oh, and he has the helmet on.
Yeah, it looks dope. And then Mom. I love the Mom character. I love how supportive that she is, like, and willing to
at midnight.
Yeah, and willing to like throw down if she needs to protect her daughter. Like, I mean, now her daughter can protect herself and the planet, but she's ready to go down and throw down and just do whatever it takes. Yeah. And anytime she was, there's a lot of good characters.
Yeah.
Next.
D and Mom.
100%. Yeah.
She goes and like threatens him, knowing who he is now. I was like, damn.
And he's a big motherfucker.
And he's taking it because like you realize that he's actually like
a sweet gentleman.
But my favorite line in this whole comic book didn't come from any of the main characters, came from D. And it's the dad going, I'll train you. And then he goes, yeah, and then I'll train you right. And I was like, oh, damn. But like they have this look at each other and they're like, okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's both train Naomi together.
I love when he
which
says,
is like badass as shit.
When he says, I've got a lot of intimacy issues to unpack.
Just like, so for me,
such an earth, like just a human term to just use.
Well, I just like that, like what they want to do is introduce these characters that you know are cool and badass, but then just give them some level of like they're not all just war ready. They're not all just like always ready to go. And like the father does a lot of too of just like I'm just very supportive and very like jovial. But I guess I'm copy and pasting. It's D and mom. And D, I think one of my favorite things was just his entire issue where he's like, "Can I have that back, please? I only have one." And it's like, oh no, he's a friend.
To go from this like
Hercules, to be
hardcore,
honest.
like he, I was trying to find the name of the series because it's one of my favorites, but there's a series called Birthright, and there was a couple of spreads where he's like in armor, he's got his semi-long hair and beard, and it looks like one of the main characters in or the main character in Birthright, where it's just like
Dan Mora.
I gotta admit too that he looks cool as fuck with his Thanagarian armor with a leather jacket on a motorcycle.
Oh, yeah.
That's like it's like if Batman
is that what that was?
and the Hulk were
His armor
together
with his black helmet.
His helmet.
okay.
Yeah, it's like the Hawkman helmet,
But it's black.
But it's all black,
and there's no ears.
Yeah, it's
so
it's
good.
very cool seeing him. I'm trying to look for that one. I see him walking around here.
On his motorcycle when he's coming in. It's like, oh
yeah,
there
it is. That's the one right there.
There's a one of the later issues of Birthright where one of the characters rides into battle on a motorcycle, and it's like once you see it, it's kind of like a medieval-esque story. So he's got a motorcycle, a modern vehicle in this kind of like fantasy world, and he's got like axes and swords, and it's dope.
Kid in King Arthur's court.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That brings us to Tom. Or you said the same thing, so that brings us to our qualms then. Qualms. Who's
you
first?
Just want to go right over it.
I did want to go.
I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I think I actually brought this up in my qualms for Spawn when we did that episode. I get pretty turned off or like kind of zone out when there's a lot of text on a page.
Like the moms.
Yeah, the mom. It's like it's beautiful. It is beautiful, and it's a cool story. But I'm just slogging through it. I'm just getting through it because I need to know the information. But I'm like, no, thank you.
I put that on mine too. I put mom's info.
Yeah, it's like it was cool story, exposition, bro. Cool story. And it was, and I was just like, this is good information to have. It's great. It is a neat story.
Yeah.
But it's just like I do, and even when you zoom out like on the app and you see it, you're like, oh yeah, that takes up a good chunk of the page.
It's how I felt with we did Monstrous Volume 1, and there was like, was it Tam Tam, the cat?
Oh yeah.
I was like,
every end
and now
issue.
for a commercial break. And you're like, oh boy. So I felt the same way, and it was beautifully written, but it was like 4 or 5 pages. It felt like, at least. It was
where
probably
like a
3.
good chunk of it is just like these like paragraphs, and you're like,
yeah.
I mean, again, it's a hard qualm to have because it is such necessary information.
Sure.
But it does take me out of it where I'm like, all right,
slogging through some.
Yeah. It would have been
blocks.
to me. I think the fix, because I try not to have any qualms without a fix. The fix to that would be if I could see Naomi's reaction rather than the actual flashes of exposition images from their time. Like if I could hear, like, one of the things that helps me with the Jor-El Superman thing is you get to see Superman reacting to hearing this message from his father, who he never knew, and he always felt out of place for. So if I could have, maybe if there was like and
it's actually
because there was the one image of the memory of her mother hugging her from behind, right?
Yeah.
Am I making that up?
That was after everything's done, you see like an
and I
after
think
image
I
of
could
her.
have done more with the face-to-face of Naomi and her, maybe a memory of her mom or something like that. Would have helped me digest that a little easier.
Yeah, and it also happens. Because this was my first qualm that I put down, and I had to when I have a qualm, I have to research it in a way and just really study it. And it happens. Quick isn't the right word. It happens within a span of a few pages.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So it's like you're reading, and then you all of a sudden get to this chunk of exposition pages, and you're like, okay, let's do this. And like it's so.
It's tough. It's a tough one because it was beautifully written also.
Yeah,
That's the hard part about it. It
exactly.
wasn't boring writing.
Yeah.
It was just a lot to intake after a lot of action.
Do you have a second one, Josh?
I do. I'm trying to. I have 3, so I need to pick one. How about you guys go, just in case?
Was that also part of your one, or do you
That
have
was
2?
part of my 2 qualms.
So you want to do your second
So I
one?
have my second qualm. I just felt. Again, it's a pilot, and I felt that at the end of it, like nothing happened in the way that I wanted it to. So this isn't a very fair comparison because this was kind of a one shot, but one of my favorite comics I've ever written, Tom brought to the table, Mantle.
That you've ever written?
Sorry, read that I think has been written, was Mantle. And we do get that satisfaction of fighting a big bad in the end, and we didn't really get that.
Yeah, the final battle was a little like disappointing, anticlimactic.
And like, you know, maybe if she had got to fight a few of
A general.
someone else that's working for him, because like
Steppenwolf.
she came at him and what did he do? Backhanded her across the city. And she got one good hit in right at the end there. And I think that was really satisfying had there been another big fight that she was trying to recover. I just never got that struggle that a lot of these that I think are important to origin stories. I'm not saying, again, everything needs to be cookie cutter, otherwise it gets really boring. But, you know, much like you know, Spider-Man's first outing, you get the struggle. You know, I'm gonna refer to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1. Like, he gets his ass handed to him by Green Goblin, and he has to come back from that. There's that uphill, like, great, I got the new power, but there was no conflict to it, and I wanted to see a little more of that conflict.
Well, I mean, she even like he shows up again, like when they're on Earth.
Yeah,
and she just like
Punches one
she
time.
goes full power and punches him one time out of it, and there's not really a fight, a struggle.
that's what I'm saying.
really.
There was no. It wasn't earned like a final, like, yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
Like that payoff of
It was
you know,
ba-dum-bum.
Old Man Logan seeing the Snicked finally after 130 pages, and you're like, oh shit! Like,
Yeah.
I didn't get that yet, and I'm excited to continue to read, but much to your point, it felt like that pilot where you're like, are you hooked? And I was like, yes, and I didn't. I wanted more.
yeah.
My qualm is I wanted more.
Do you want me to go and then
Yeah,
you'll figure it
yeah.
out? So mine is just one. And this is kind of like an overarching thing of what I think everyone's saying. I think, oh man, there's so much good story, right? So much good story. Like just laying the foundation of
Give me
this
a
character.
good butt here.
But the tough thing is what you're saying is that there is just a weird pace or a weird moment where this happens. And the way I could think about it's like, it's so much feels like a pitch to be a show. But like, let's imagine it as a film, right? There's things like that happen in most films where there is a bunch of exposition that happens in the middle of it to kind of change the context of what the second and third act is going to be.
Sure.
When Hellboy realizes that his true name will open the doors to the Ogdu Jihad. Like when Superman finds out that like, I'm Superman, and then he flies and does his thing, and then that's when the Kryptonians come. When Batman's like, I have to become Batman. That's an hour and a half later in the movie, and then another hour happens. Like, so the whole exposition thing that happens with Naomi happens around the beginning of the third act instead of in the middle of the second. And so that's kind of like therein lies a weird pacing thing of you don't get to see her have her powers, fail to use them well, and then have the final tests to actually use it.
Yeah.
And so it just feels like it's so top heavy or like bottom heavy. I don't know, wherever you want to call it. I would call it like foot heavy at the end of it all.
Yeah.
Where you're like, well, now the only thing for her to do is to succeed. There's
Yeah.
nothing to test her.
It's a little suspect too, because in a sense where it's
A little sus.
a little sus with the this finished in like 2022-esque. There's only 6 issues,
Mhm.
and the next it's continuing like in March of this year, and it's kind of, and now we have a show. It is kind of one of those things like, did you make this just for like
volume
a pitch?
Volume 2 starts out with her like immediately after this event, she flies and meets Superman, and she's like, "I need you
Is
to
there
help."
like a
There's single,
teaser? Somebody?
There's single issues. Just because the volume's not out doesn't mean the single issues aren't out yet.
Yeah.
Wow, that's weird. I couldn't find that anywhere.
Yeah, so there's her meeting with Superman, and then Batman
Spoilers.
trains her, and then like,
Spoilers.
and that's the thing where it's just like, I thought your dads were going to train you, not the Justice League.
Yeah.
And then she joins the Young Justice team, and so like, and then Red
Spoilers.
Tornado's like, You're an Omega
We might
level
have to bleep all of this out.
You're a beep 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 beep. But yeah, so
Julie, we need to bleep all of that.
okay, put this overall. Then just put that over.
It needs to be much longer than that.
Boom, boom, boom.
just redo it all.
Put
Yeah.
that underneath. Boom, 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 boom. And then we have a jazz bleep. to
Yeah,
go over.
so
there you
there's-
go, Julie. That's for you.
So there's so much that happens afterwards where it just feels like, yeah, we're gonna just implant her into the rest of the DC universe.
so weird that I couldn't find that.
And so this just ends, and again, that's where it just kind of ends with like, only thing Superman has to do is beat Zod, and it's like, but he doesn't fight the other Kryptonians and potentially lose and understand what the Red Sun is, all this other stuff, atmospherics. And you're like, but like if Naomi came in and there was like two generals being like, you actually belong with us, you shouldn't be with these Earthlings, whatever, and then she fights
hard
and she
to-
loses.
I mean, I think we've said this in previous episodes about Volume 1s, specifically with this one too. Other Volume 1s that we have done have gone on for many years. This is what you have right now. And it's like, I even put one of my favorite parts is like when she goes full power, and I went full power in quotes because we don't know. Right now, it's like, well, as far as I know, there's nowhere left to go. You've given me your shot.
Mhm.
So it's a little, yeah, no, I get that.
No, yeah. So to me, I just feel like, to kind of both of your qualms, like to me, it's overall like, and that's the thing where I mentioned this with Black Widow. Like my favorite parts were the non-fighting things, and so with here, it's cool to obviously get her powers, but it just kind of creates a weird pace.
I remember
issue.
being on that episode.
Yeah, when you were the host. So do you have a second one that you can pick from?
I mean, this is kind of a strange one because you kind of cleared. I don't know. You guys seem to understand it, but I obviously missed it. When D, though it's cool, suits up, I was kind of like, okay, that's out of nowhere. Like I didn't make the connection that was his old armor. To me, I was like, oh, okay, that's happening. Cool. I like
yeah.
it. It's really dope. But I
Because,
didn't make
yeah,
the
it
connection
It shows
at
it
all.
when he's explaining
the flashback.
the flashback to her when she breaks in and he's telling her about who he was and who that woman was.
I didn't even make the
photo.
connection. Like the when he's doing that, the spreads were a little actually confusing to me of who's who. Even like reading it multiple times.
One
so,
point for Comixology, 1 point taken away.
so I mean, maybe that's an error on my part, and I'll take responsibility on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say this to your credit. The first time you see him like in battle, he's not wearing his helmet.
Yeah. Okay.
When he's with his dad, when he's with Greg, the Rand guy.
Yeah,
right.
and I think it also my qualm is a little unfair because of the lack of knowledge, because I think they mention Hawkman
Yeah.
maybe.
at some point.
D does.
D does,
Yeah.
and so I think I saw a Hawkman looking guy, and I was like, oh,
Yeah, this is the spread here because that's with his beard. That's him.
okay, yeah, I
with
didn't
his
make that
full
connection
armor on.
because I thought that was Hawkman. I was like, oh, okay,
Hawkman is going to be in gold.
yeah, I lack of knowledge.
Same folks though. Yeah.
Strike it from the record. It's not a real quam.
Strucken.
I mean, it could still be a qualm for you.
Strucken from the record.
If it please the court.
So ratings.
Finally, rating. So Josh is
Rating,
first.
So I am
Josh is
first.
first.
I'm gonna give it a solid 4.5.
Ooh.
I think it's a great comic to. I mean, I think even if you were gonna just start with comics, like if you're like, oh, I want to get into superheroes, it's like, well, there's a lot to start from, and you could start with this. It's a nice easy,
Yeah.
easy breezy, like hey,
Beautiful.
Superman's there, and then we can go further from there.
Comic girl.
Okay, yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah, I'll
So
say a
for
4.5.
me, 4, solid 4.
All right.
I think it's good. It's simple. It's there. It's beautiful. The artwork is the most standout thing. There's just not to me a lot of. It's like cool. I'm done. I feel like I'm interested to see just how she plays with the other DC characters, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know where you're gonna go. You literally one punched your main villain. So I'm like, imagine that happening. They did do that in Justice League. I think the New 52 that Jeff Johns wrote.
Yeah.
Which I was just like, oh, come on, man. Or it might have been Jeff Loeb, but it's like, oh, come on, man. They like one punch Darkseid. I was like, well, what else is there to do now?
And scene.
So there's that. So what's Corey's?
4.6.
Oh.
Hey!
Yep.
I chose wrong.
Written down all the way down here, 4.6.
Oh, is that how you do that?
I liked it. I had a fun time reading it. Again, I enjoy these origin comics, and I do understand they're gonna come with a bit of levity to them because we're introducing ourselves to a new character. You know, we read these amazing Batman or X-Men comics and remember that, like, oh yeah, they have 40 to 80 years worth of like backstory to make this important. And these new characters don't. So I had a blast, and I'm very intrigued.
And to that point, there's a lot of stories that aren't important.
Yeah, there's a lot of origin stories too that are not
Or just
well
regular stories
crafted.
too, yeah.
And so to see this one and hit so many notes, I really enjoyed my time reading this, and I cannot wait to dig into this character further. So there we have it. That means
Who gets
Tom
a shout out? Who gets
Tom
a
is
shout
a
is
out?
the
grump.
grump of the episode, meaning I was right.
You were
Corey
right.
gets a vote.
But you don't get a vote on the Grand Master
Why
God-
not?
God
because you're
Emperor.
involved.
Yeah, whatever. So T-Dog gets a shout out. Dana P gets a shout out.
Oh.
And Charlotte G.
Wow.
Y'all get
nice.
shout outs.
Nice.
Well done. You got it right. We'll add it to the tally for the end of the year. There you have it, folks. That's our episode
T-Dog,
on Naomi, Volume Season Part 1, Book 0.
No, don't. There are actual 0 issues.
I know.
don't do that. Don't confuse our audience. T-Dog actually postured recently
Oh,
of there
yeah.
being a
Fourth option.
fourth option of no grump because
Or say all.
technically an
I would say
option.
I would say all grump. Right? No, yeah. If it's all the same number, then there is no grump.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess would they?
They are a member of
we
the
want to
Nerd
give them
Nation.
like double points for that because technically, if there is no grump, then everyone that voted still gets a point.
Yeah,
But then if they get
that was
the
B-Rad's
if
point.
they get the no grump vote, I think they should get 2.
Damn.
Wow.
Because that
There's a
also
lot of math.
We've already missed a few episodes to implement that, is the unfortunate part.
well, too bad. Now we can start it.
The
And one
control
of them-
group.
And one of them was all 5s.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you have read this comic, let us know what your thoughts were on it.
Let us know what your thought.
Yeah, just let us know your one thought. And reach out in either social media. The Discord is probably
Reach out and touch me.
Yeah,
You
do that. The Discord is probably the best way to really continue the conversation. There is a comics channel in there that you can continue it. Like I said up top, do consider joining that Nerd On Nation. It does allow us to keep doing this and to keep getting better at it and making better content. Because that's what we really want to do. We want to do this all the time and just make more and better. More and better. That's what we want to do. So check that out.
Harder, better, faster, stronger.
If you're listening, stop by, rate and review us. We are everywhere podcasts can be heard. So whether it's Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Spotify, whatever it is, he's still holding up my one thought. Wherever it is, please stop by, rate and review. And then, while you're listening, hit that little share button.
Oh!
And share it to Facebook, Twitter,
Just
Instagram.
Hulk smash it.
Just wherever you like to post the social medias, post it there.
Be fucking cool if you did.
Because that's how we grow. That's when we run. We've run a few surveys in the
We've
past.
run the numbers.
We've run the numbers, and a lot of people say that the way that they found our show was a friend told them about us. So tell friends.
Tell
Tell
your friends
friends.
their ears will thank them later.
Just
Yeah.
tell one.
Just tell one. That's
Just
all it
tell
takes.
one.
Tell one to give us 4 quarters.
Yeah.
And then tell those 4 quarters to bring 4 quarters.
Yeah.
Those 4 quarters to bring 4 quarters. We're a pyramid.
And now you have $4.
Now we're a pyramid scheme.
Now you're closer to a cup of coffee.
Pyramid on the podcast.
Yeah. And check out our episodes on YouTube. All of these episodes do go to video, so check that out.
Thanks, Julie.
But
we
that-
really couldn't do it without you. We've been trying to, and we couldn't.
Really, it's true. Shout out to Julie.
Yeah.
But that is the episode. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Take care of yourselves. You know the drill. As always.
Nerd on.
Ending broadcast.